Hello, and welcome back to the Scale SaaS Podcast, where we talk to the innovators shaping the future of AI, SaaS, fintech, and everything in between. Today's topic is one that almost no founder is thinking about, but absolutely every founder should fear. AI is rewriting the rules of intellectual property, and if you're not prepared, your competitive advantage can disappear overnight. And there is no one better to unpack this than Chris Buntel, co-founder and chief IP officer at Tangibly, a company that helps organizations protect the hidden assets that matter most. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ali. It's great to be here, and you'll soon tell that I'm very excited about trade secrets. I think it's a really exciting and dynamic part of intellectual property. And again, thank you for the invitation.
Right. Okay, so Chris, let's start here. Why are trade secrets suddenly becoming the most critical and most vulnerable form of IP in the AI era?
Well, trade secrets have really grown in importance, especially in the last 5 years or so. If you rewound the clock, you'd see everyone talked about patents and trademarks for a very long time. And trade secrets, if they were thought about at all, they were thought of as plan B, with plan A being, a typical patent approach. And patents are still important. I'm not anti-patent by any means. I always joke that I like patents, but I love trade secrets. And there's a couple of reasons why AI is actually a huge motivator for people to look more closely at trade secrets. The first is just the speed of evolution of AI. A lot of times when you try to get a patent, you're looking at a 3 to 4 year process, maybe even longer in some cases. And by the time you would get a patent, it's no longer even relevant because the AI has evolved so many times in those 3 or 4 years that the patent is not worth anything, or certainly not worth the money that you've invested. And you've had to make some trade-offs. Like, a key part of the patent system is you have to disclose how to make and use your technology to the whole world. And 18 months, a year and a half after you start the patent process, the entire document gets published. So everyone in the world, all 180 plus countries, can view what you're doing. And it might be another couple of years before you get your patent. AI is also really pushing the legal community to think about some new problems or new challenges. The intellectual property has been around for hundreds of years, and it always protected human creations. So human-created technologies, human-created artwork, human-created recipes. Everything had to do with a person creating something valuable and useful. And that worked fine up until AI. And now you're getting AIs that are capable of amazing things. They can come up with new products, new technologies, artwork, videos, music, even AI actors are being created. And it's really posing some interesting new questions about how to protect those. And recently, we've seen a lot of guidance, both from courts as well as governments, saying that an AI cannot be an inventor, and an AI cannot be an artist who's protectable under copyright. So suddenly, you have these tools like patents and copyrights that have worked well for hundreds of years being unavailable if an AI is the one creating the thing of value. And what's left over is trade secrets. Trade secrets are actually a wonderful option because it doesn't require any human involvement at all. It's just valuable confidential information. So a lot of people are now taking a step back and saying, if I can't avail myself of the typical forms of protection, are there ways to leverage trade secrets and still protect my valuable technology that I'm going to bring to market or raise a lot of money in starting off a new company. So it's, what's bad for patents in a way is actually being great for trade secrets. It's really exciting.
Right. So you talked a little bit about AI. Can you elaborate that how has AI reshaped the entire threat landscape?
Sure, it's a great question. And the threat landscape has dramatically changed, not only with AI, but since and during COVID as well. A big change is just around employee mobility. And that's true actually in all industries, and especially so in the AI community, where people are changing jobs very often, much faster than they used to. No one spends their entire career at one company like 20 or 40 years ago. And that change, and also people are working from home, they're working remotely at a cafe or a coffee shop. And a lot of people have multiple gigs. So they'll have their primary job, but then have additional engagements on the side, either in secret or maybe their primary employer is okay with it. But all of these different factors really amplified the threat landscape even before AI came on the scene. And now with AI, it's making it even more dramatic, where people can take something of value with them from one employer to the next, thinking it's somehow okay, or it's somehow normal to do this, or they feel like a personal ownership because they worked really hard and stayed up late and worked weekends. But the reality is that asset, which is now very portable, is a company-owned asset if the company chooses to protect it. So really, the whole threat landscape has changed dramatically in the last couple of years, and certainly since COVID.
Right. So we can say that the biggest trade secret risk today isn't hackers. As you mentioned, it's the employees, the subcontractors, the contractors, the vendors itself, right?
And when we started Tangibly, we wanted to understand where the risk was actually coming from. And we had our own mental ideas, and a lot of people are very concerned about hackers, for example. But if you generate the statistics, which we did internally, and it's since been very similarly validated by a number of other parties, you get an amazing and surprising result. So statistically, about 70% of the time, it's your own employees and colleagues. These are the people that you go to lunch with or have coffee with, and they're probably some of your friends. Most of the time, the trade secret problems come from your coworkers. About 15% is from partners and other people that maybe you started having a great relationship with. Could be a vendor, a supplier, a joint development partner at a university, and then something goes wrong. Maybe the project didn't work. Maybe they use your confidential information to help another client that they're not supposed to do, but something changes. And then the final 15% are the hackers and thieves and ninjas and the people that you normally worry about. And don't get me wrong, it's still a risk. Hacking is definitely a real problem and a real issue, but statistically, everyone's ignoring the 70% bucket, and they're focused really closely on the 15% bucket. And to me, that just seems a little backwards. But humans are terrible at understanding risk and acting accordingly. Like we always worry about the wrong thing and avoid or don't even think about some huge risks that are standing right in front of you.
Now, here comes an interesting question. How does AI make stealing or reconstructing trade secrets 10x easier? I was just hearing one of the founders from a cybersecurity company. He says that no company can save itself in the next 2 to 3 years from stealing their secrets.
Well, and there's really two different kinds of people that you need to think about. So one is good people doing a bad thing, and the other one is a bad person doing a bad thing.
Right.
In both cases, something bad happens that jeopardizes or actually loses the trade secret entirely. But the mental state is very different. So if you start with the good people doing bad things, typically it's an innocent mistake, or they didn't have proper training or proper guidance or proper procedures. So they didn't intend to jeopardize that valuable asset, but they did. And that's actually a very manageable situation. Things like policies, procedures, training can really reduce the risk of that problem happening. And you'll never get it to zero, but it's actually very addressable. So that's an easy problem. The other bucket is people doing a bad thing intentionally. Like they know they're doing something wrong. And if you read trade secret litigations, they're actually pretty interesting because the very most common pattern is always the same. So someone is planning on resigning from their job at 3 a.m. the day before they quit. They download 8,000 files onto their personal email or a thumb drive or something. And then when they leave, they either go to a competing company or start their own competing shop. And we see this pattern over and over and over again. Like they're not very creative oftentimes. It's a very common pattern. But with AI, I think the risks of both of those happening is higher. You can very quickly type a prompt containing your trade secret or valuable confidential information and innocently create a huge problem where feeding it to the AI might be considered a disclosure, and then that AI model might incorporate both your prompt as well as the answer into itself as it learns from interacting with you as a user. So that's a very quick and unfortunately easy way to jeopardize the value of that information. Also, if someone wants to be a bad person, they can use AI as well to steal information. It's actually becoming almost too easy, and that threat is becoming more and more real.
Right, very insightful, very insightful. So if someone uploads confidential information into ChatGPT, is the damage already done? Is it truly irreversible? Can you reverse it?
So if you put something confidential into ChatGPT, it's very difficult to get the genie back into the bottle. So once that information's out there, it's hard because ChatGPT is under no obligation to you to keep your information secret. And again, part of the danger or risk of using an open platform like ChatGPT is how easy it is. You can put in your confidential medical records very quickly and very easily to get your disease diagnosed. A lot of people will put in information that you really should be communicating with an attorney about and thinking, I'm asking a legal question, so I'll have things like attorney-client privilege or attorney work product protecting that information. Guess what? ChatGPT is not your lawyer. So a lot of people are like very quickly making assumptions, if they're thinking at all, that jeopardizes the confidentiality of that information.
Right. From moving onward, I should be careful uploading the information.
And people can make their own proprietary LLMs. Like Tangibly, we've built our own that avoid all of those issues. So you can have your own private LLM that you can use safely and not run these risks. It's only when you're using a publicly available platform like ChatGPT and others that raise these interesting questions.
Right. What are the most surprising and costly mistakes companies are making with the trade secrets right now? I think you come across many every day, yeah?
We do come across a lot of surprises, and they're often not good surprises.
Okay.
And I'm still shocked at how many companies do nothing. And they're in waiting mode, or they're just not sure what to do. And they basically choose paralysis. And in the trade secret world, we often talk about something called reasonable measures. And our podcast is even named Reasonable Measures in kind of tribute. But it says you have to do what's reasonable to protect your confidential information, to have any chance of a good result down the road if something goes wrong. Clearly, doing nothing is unreasonable. Like, it's the absolute worst thing you can do. And it's shocking how many companies are choosing not to do anything, or just not choosing anything, which is basically choosing to do nothing. There's no good argument saying that doing nothing is a reasonable measure. And this is true from the smallest startup to large MNCs that we talk to. And it still baffles me, even this year, that we keep encountering this situation. There's just a lot of myths and misconceptions about protecting trade secrets that are driving people to do nothing. Again, it's the absolute worst thing you can do.
Right. So does it include companies having higher ARR, like 50 million ARR plus companies? They are also doing nothing about trade secrets, right?
Even large publicly traded multinationals are not taking trade secrets seriously, or they're waiting until there's a problem in a theft or a misappropriation before dealing with it. And it's kind of the best analogy that I have is fire insurance. So when you buy a home, you buy fire insurance before your house is on fire. If you wait until your house is burning down to say, hey, maybe I should get fire insurance, you're much too late. And people actually don't want their house to burn down. Like, I would be perfectly happy dying an old man and having my house fully intact. I think that's a great result and perfectly fine with me. But people's attitude towards trade secrets often get it backwards, where they wait until their house is on fire, there's been a theft or a misappropriation, to say, hey, maybe we should do something. And it's really, it makes it much harder for you to be effective in dealing with the problem if you don't have your insurance policy already in hand.
Right. I couldn't agree more, and that's very surprising. So what core pain points does Tangibly solve that most companies don't realize until it is too late? How you're different from other companies?
So that's a great multiple questions in one. Tangibly was formed to address some real shortcomings in the market. So law firms especially knew what to do once there's been a theft, once the house is on fire. But no one was doing things proactively. So law firms weren't providing counseling, service providers weren't providing consulting, and there was no good software to speak of. The really advanced people were using things like Excel or a table in Word, which is just really insufficient. And we wanted to make three things either easy or much easier than before. So the first off is lowering your risk. By using Tangibly and doing things the right way, you will dramatically lower your risk of problems in the first place. Again, I don't want my house to catch fire.
Right.
The second one is, if you do end up in a problem where maybe one of those 70% of your employees steals your assets, you're positioned much better to deal with it. So you have your story built up already of how you met or exceeded reasonable measures, and you can very quickly and effectively take action.
Right.
Then the third benefit actually resonates more with startups and small to medium-sized companies is it helps demonstrate value. For most small and new companies, their IP portfolio is very, very small. They might have a couple of patent applications, maybe a trademark or two, but that's their entire IP portfolio, under 10 assets, maybe under 5. But they have this huge collection of trade secrets that they're not thinking about. But by identifying and managing those trade secrets, you can go from a collection of 5 assets to a collection of 105 assets. A lot of these companies will have 20, 50, maybe 100 trade secrets that are not identified, not cataloged, not really respected. But suddenly you go from having a very small portfolio that you can justify has some value, but then you go to the other extreme of a huge portfolio, and suddenly you look big and valuable and powerful. And if you're trying to get a venture capitalist excited in investing, or a government grant agency, or a bank to securitize some financial product, you look bigger and stronger and more formidable than the other company with 5 assets that's competing with you. So we've really seen like larger companies, they get excited about lowering risk and dealing with litigation. Small and startup companies, they don't care about that because it's too far down the track, but they get very excited about boosting their valuation. So different benefits resonate differently. But Tangibly was formed really to make those 3 outcomes possible.
Very nice.
And when we started, I think my title was something like Chief IP Officer.
Yeah.
It's really become very quickly Chief Evangelist. And a huge fraction of my time is spent on podcasts like this one. Thank you for inviting me. But we have our own podcasts. I do blogs, webinars. I'm super active on LinkedIn. And a lot of it is educating people about what trade secrets are fundamentally, why they're valuable, and how you can best manage and protect them for your company. So education is the vast majority of what I do these days.
Right. Okay. And you're pretty good in it. I can see it.
Thank you.
Also, I want to know about your patent X-ray technology, because I looked at your website. There is some information over there. So for our listeners, why it is such a breakthrough?
The patent X-ray is the very first of our AI facilitated insight tools. And it's a great story and something I'm really excited about. So early on, we would talk to potential clients or new clients, and oftentimes they would say they're sure they had trade secrets, but they didn't even know where to begin looking for them. And they wanted some kind of easy tool that would get them started on that identification journey.
Right.
So we came up with this idea of starting with patents. So for clients, a lot of them will have maybe at least one patent or patent application, maybe more. And we had this crazy notion that you could start with a patent document and predict where adjacent trade secrets are hiding. Okay. And I've been an IP lawyer for a very long time. And honestly, I thought it was impossible that you could take a public document and predict trade secrets. It seemed crazy. It seemed science fiction-y, but I was wrong, and I'm okay admitting that. It works remarkably well, and it won't tell you what the trade secret is, but it will give you guidance, kind of like marking a trail or dropping breadcrumbs, that allows you to have really insightful and productive conversations with your team to identify what the trade secret actually is. So it might say, have you thought about the optimal temperature for a process? or the optimal network configuration for a certain system, or the optimal quality control test for validating that you have a good product before it goes out the door. So it kind of asks questions or poses things for you to think about that then facilitates arriving at what the trade secret actually is.
Right.
Again, I thought it was totally impossible, but it works. And the patent X-ray looks at one document at a time. We've since expanded that where you can do it on an entire portfolio and again predict where the trade secrets are. And some of our clients have even said, well, this works great for my patent or my portfolio. Can I use this on my competitor's patent or portfolio? And the answer, of course, is yes, you can. So a lot of people have been using it as more of a competitive intelligence tool. And that's something we never even imagined at first. So as people use the different tools within the Tangibly toolbox, they keep coming up with more creative use cases than we ever imagined.
So basically, you're building this tool driven by the feedback from your customers. Amazing.
Yeah, it's happened. Actually, most of our tools were inspired by customer feedback or customer wish lists. Yeah, we get tremendous feedback, and we have an amazing set of customers.
Okay. So, Chris, I am well connected with many CEOs and I want to scare them. What is one shocking truth about trade secrets that would genuinely scare a CEO, but nobody is telling them right now?
So it scares me to no end how big and immediate a problem trade secret theft really is. The estimates are 1 to 3% of GDP for developed countries are lost due to trade secret theft. That's a massive, massive amount of money. And there's been a lot of surveys, and between about a third to a half of surveyed customers admit that they're a victim. And to me, I think that actually is underreporting. I think it's closer to probably half to 3/4 because a lot of companies don't even know what their trade secrets are to begin with. So if they're stolen, they still have no idea. And then I'm sure a number of companies are uncomfortable or embarrassed to admit, yes, I'm a victim. My name is Chris. I'm a victim of trade secret theft. So I think that it's a matter of when, not a matter of if you'll be a victim. It's a huge, huge immediate problem, and it should scare everyone.
Yeah, and I think CEOs, they don't disclose it because they will get a hit on their reputation as well.
It's embarrassing, and it's something no one really wants to admit. Yeah, no one likes to be a victim, first off.
Correct.
And then second is no one wants to admit that they've been a victim as well, especially if they were not in a good position to deal with it.
Yeah, okay, sure. And since people like stories, can you share one real world example where a company lost a trade secret? You don't need to name the company because of either AI or human error.
Yeah, it's a great question. And with AI, if you ask me maybe in another year or two, I'm sure we'll have real examples. I think the AI litigation is just starting and probably we'll have more interesting stories later on. So most of the trade secret problems currently involve a person. And it actually makes trade secret stories more interesting because they're very personal. Invariably, there's either one person or a small team that, again, do something wrong, either intentionally or accidentally or inadvertently. And it involves a lot of possible vectors for that loss. A lot of people, either scientists, will publish or present at conferences because they're proud of the work they're doing. Salespeople are equally bad about keeping things secret because they want to tell customers how fantastic their products and services are. And it's just very easy for things like that to happen. And even attorneys, not to bash my own group, but attorneys make mistakes as well. Maybe we wait too long, and there have been trade secret cases lost because statutes of limitation, the time limit to bring a court case expired. And it wasn't because the trade secret was bad or not protected. It's just human deadlines were missed. So there's a lot of interesting human reasons why trade secrets are lost or ultimately not protected. There are also cases where people just didn't identify their trade secret well enough. You'll see a lot of times people talk about particularity or specificity in defining your trade secrets. 5 or 10 years ago, you could be very fuzzy and wave your hands around and still survive in court. These days, the courts are saying you have to be more and more specific about what your trade secrets are in order to have a good result. So again, that's more of a human thing of really understanding what you have that's valuable and then realizing when it's been stolen. So lots of interesting real world examples, and I expect we'll see some involving AI pretty soon.
Right. So Chris, a lot of useful information, a lot of insight you have already provided about trade secret. If I'm a founder, what are the top 4 to 5 things I must do right now or in the next 90 days to make sure that my trade secrets are protected? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I like to be very practical and actionable. So this is a wonderful question. First off, just involves setting a foundation. So having a trade secret policy in place that you actually follow is the very bottom layer of a good foundation. Similarly, have an AI policy in place. It might be super restrictive or super loose and floppy, but have a policy in place that you actually follow. The third one is conduct training. At Tangibly, we often say the highest return on investment, the highest ROI of anything you can do to lower your trade secret risk is training. Because again, a lot of those 70% employees, they're not bad people. They're just doing something wrong without knowing it. But by training them, you can really reduce that risk. Number 4, and I have a list of 5. Number 4 is related to the last question, is really identify and catalog your trade secrets, like understand what you have. And it's like any valuable assets. You know what your equipment is, what your computers and laptops are, down to the serial number. Do the same thing with trade secrets. And it's interesting because there's actually 2 big buckets of trade secrets that the second one, not a lot of people think about. So the first one is technology. That's all of the machines and methods and algorithms that everyone commonly thinks about. But the other one, which is equally important and sometimes even more important, are business trade secrets. And those are things that are totally not patentable, but super valuable. Things like your customer list, your customer purchasing patterns, your quality control protocols and procedures, your competitive intelligence information, even legal documents are all trade secrets, but they're in the business category that most people don't think about.
Right. Okay.
And then number 5, which is also really important, relates to HR. And most people are surprised. They think, why is HR important for trade secrets? But the reality is the HR policies and procedures are the first and last gatekeepers of your trade secrets. So as part of the onboarding process, HR can help you keep other people's trade secrets out of your organization. and prevent what we call contamination.
Mm.
And then at the other extreme, on someone's last day, as they're being offboarded, it's another great opportunity to remind them that they're not supposed to bring your trade secrets with them. So they're kind of the first and last lines of defense. So there's a top 5, very actionable, certainly within 90 days, basic foundational steps that everyone should be doing.
I hope the founders are listening to it. That was really valuable information. And I can say that you can predict a lot of things. So give us a prediction in the next 24 months. What big trade secret disaster we are going to see?
So my prediction, and this is a really interesting question, is there's going to be a major trade secret theft of some super valuable algorithm. And there's a lot of examples out there. It'll be a 70% departing employee. The trade secret owner will be very upset, try to enforce their rights and get the genie back in the bottle. And they're going to fail miserably because they didn't take any proactive action at all, or minimal proactive action. And the court will say that they failed to hit that reasonable measure standard. And the trade secret thief, who was being a bad person at 3 a.m, downloading 8,000 files, including the secret algorithm, is going to walk away. It's almost guaranteed to happen, maybe even sooner than 24 months, but it's going to be a major loss of a trade secret. And the trade secret owner is going to get a very bad surprise at the end of the day.
Right. That would be the learning lesson for many as well.
And don't be that person.
Yeah, we should not be that person. And now we know that Tangibly has a unique value proposition. A lot of founders can benefit from it. So, Chris, how can people connect with you?
So I'm very easy to find. I'm super active on LinkedIn, so you can just look up my name and connect. I post a lot of interesting content there all the time. Email works as well. It's chris.buntel@Tangibly, or through our website, tangibly.com, where we post a lot of interesting blogs and podcasts and other content. It all goes back to my being primarily an evangelist and really educating people and getting them excited about protecting trade secrets, both to lower their risk and to boost their value. So I'd love to hear from anyone in your audience. That would be fantastic.
Right. So, Chris, I really enjoyed this discussion. Thank you for joining us. And to everyone listening, here's the truth. AI won't steal your trade secret. Your own workflows will. One careless upload, one unlabeled file, one ex-employee. That's all it takes, as Chris has just mentioned. So protect your secrets before AI or a competitor takes them from you. See you in the next episode. Stay safe and stay smart.
Thanks again. We'll talk soon.